Hey all you rockers and groupies, it's Jack the Punk King here coming at you. Tonight we're going to talk about acoustic guitars versus electric guitars and their respective music. Now, if you ask mostly any guitarists out there and say what kind of guitar do you play, acoustic or electric, there's a pretty good chance they're going to say both because, well, there's no difference really. Except for one requires an amp and one doesn't, most of the time. Unless it's an acoustic electric, which is just a hybrid. Anyway, although there are musicians who are guitarists out there who prefer one or the other. In fact, many of you saw my video with my buddy Freon. He does not like acoustic guitar. Like, he's a pretty good guitarist, knows a lot of 80s, like, Iron Maiden, Def Leppard stuff on guitar, but he does not play acoustic. No. And for him, I don't know if this is true for, like, other guitarists that don't play acoustic, but for him, it's the size, like the width. With electric guitars, they're pretty thin unless they're hollow bodies, like some Gibson guitars. But acoustic guitars are usually about this thick, and they can get thicker, thinner. I mean, there's all kinds. So, but most of the time they're pretty thick, and they're rounded up. Like, if you're holding an acoustic guitar, chances are it'll round up and it'll be uncomfortable depending on if you like that sort of thing. Like, I started out on, when I really started learning, I started out on my grandpa's. He's got an old Gibson guitar that he doesn't really play, and I still play it every once in a while. It's a really good guitar. It's like an old blues guitar. And it's really like it's acoustic electric, but it's a hollow body, and it's really kind of awkward to hold, just because it's so thick, and it actually is pretty large compared to even just regular acoustics. Now, the argument can be said for the other side too. Like, I haven't met someone yet, but I'm sure they're out there, that people who don't like electric guitar. A lot of it, people think that it should have just stayed acoustic. Devil worship music. Y'all, that devil worship music out there. Metal. No. Most metalheads don't worship Satan. I mean, there probably are. In fact, there are bands that do that, but most metalheads, I mean, Iron Maiden, no. Not that I know of. I've listened to a lot of Iron Maiden stuff, and yes, they have an album called The Number of the Beast. That doesn't mean they worship Satan. But most metal bands don't worship Satan. Some of them do get their inspiration from him. Electric guitar in itself does not come from any evil. I mean, if you listen to blues music from the 1940s, I think I think it's the 40s. I don't remember. Robert Johnson, I believe his name is. If I'm wrong, correct me, it's fine. He's one of those musicians who said he sold his soul to the devil to be a good guitar player. If you've ever seen the movie Brother, Where Art Thou, the character, I can't think of his name right now, but he's the African-American guitar player who joins the Chain Gang. Tommy, that's his name. He is supposed to represent him, because it's from the same time period. He actually wrote a song, not Tommy, but who his character is reflecting, which is Robert Johnson. He wrote a song called Me and the Devil Blues, and it talks... It's actually, most people speculate if it's him telling how he sold his soul to the devil, or him and his wife who used to beat him. I don't know, I wasn't there. Anyway, so you can't really make that argument that electric guitars are the Satan work. I mean, that's been in music since before electric guitars were a big thing. I mean, they were just coming out in the 40s. In fact, the first electric guitar that was ever made that was not a steel guitar, because Rickenbacker has that. They made the first steel guitar. But the Fender Telecaster, well, back then it was called the Broadcaster, but we know it now as the Telecaster, actually was the first electric guitar, made in 1950. I want to say it's 51 or 52, I'm not sure. Was the first electric guitar made by Leo Fender. And, you know, that's... Before then, there was even people saying that guitar itself was made by the devil. So you can't make that argument, because it's not fair to say that people do the same thing with drums too, by the way, for all you drummers out there. But you can't make that argument. Sound, it all depends on what you like for the sound. I love, sometimes when I'm really frustrated, just popping in some acoustic. I'll listen to old acoustic blues. I'll listen to Nirvana's Unplugged album. I'll listen to Pearl Jam Unplugged. Or I'll just play my acoustic guitar. That does the same almost. I just love the way it sounds. It's got, because I'm a 90s guy, like most of my sound is somewhat a mix of blues and 90s grunge. When it comes from my acoustic, I always think of a coffee shop. I actually worked in a coffee shop for about 2 years, and I worked in the mornings, but there'd still be times where people would come in with guitars. We used to have I think we called it Inspiration Night, where it was every Monday night. You could come in and just artists could do whatever they want. I would take my guitar in. People would draw. There was a lot of artists there with drawings, a couple paintings. I even met a magician there once, so that was cool. And then eventually that matured into open mic nights, which I loved. That was the second place I did open mic. I actually did open mic for a full year, once a week, every week, at this bookstore from my old town in Wausau. It was, you wouldn't even notice it if you were driving past on the street. Unless you looked at it, you wouldn't notice it. Just a little hole in the wall, and I saw a sign there saying open mic every Wednesday. And I would take my acoustic in there and just play. But so most acoustic has that coffee shop vibe, that it's a travel guitar. I mean, you take it everywhere, and it's what you can do when you have very low amounts of money and you don't have enough to buy an amp. Like, I mean, I even got a guitar out of the trash can that was an acoustic. It was not a bad acoustic. I really liked the sound of it after I cleaned it, fixed it up a little. So, now the argument that everything has to be electric, I don't agree with that. And the argument that everything has to be acoustic, I don't agree with that. There needs to be a middle. I love the sound of an electric guitar, you know. Metal shredders. Just not even metal shredders. I'll listen to clean stuff all the time on it. I'll play clean stuff, like when I want to just crank up the reverb, turn the bass down, turn the treble up, turn the middle up, and just want to play some really nice, I call it churchy blues, because it reminds me of if I'm like in a church and I'm playing just on clean. So Now, electric guitars in themselves are extremely, well, not extremely complicated, but compared to an acoustic guitar, they're pretty complicated. There's thousands of different kinds of electric guitars that have different designs that do this and that do this and change this sound. I mean, you can raise the pickups, you can put holes in your electric guitar. So acoustic guitars are kind of just like the, here you go, take this, now off you go, start playing, kind of a thing. No plug-in, nothing. You just grab it, you grab a pick, you got your strings on there, and you just start playing. I don't think that it's wrong to like either. Like I said, I love both. In fact, I'm doing about 3 more discussion videos tonight. If anyone's curious about the date, today is December 12th, or December 8th, 2013. Getting ahead of myself a little. And I'd like to do at least 1 acoustic video and 1 electric guitar video tonight. So look out for that. But if you want to compare electric and acoustic, that's fine. It is all your own personal opinion, and there's nothing wrong with that. Having your own opinion is fine. I have my own opinion about certain guitars versus other guitars, companies versus other companies. I collide with my friends and I discuss that all the time with them. I'm a big traditionalist, I guess is what you would tag me as. Like, I don't like extreme shape guitars. I love the Stratocaster look. I love the Les Paul look and the Telecaster look. I do like Flying Vs, and Explorers are okay. But I love just the look of a nice Les Paul or a nice Fender Stratocaster. I love those looks. And stuff like the Warlock, I don't know, it's just not me. So I have friends who will play those like this because that's what they like. And the same thing applies to acoustic versus electric guitar. You know, if you like the sound of one better than the other, then fine, it's your opinion. Sorry, I had to get my coffee. But some people do think that musicians are better for playing something a certain way. Like, if any of you know where I'm from or know me from my hometown, Owasso, Michigan, which is, I could do the whole Michigan thing. It's in between Lansing and Flint. It's a small little town. Of course, it's kind of crowded by other small little towns, so it's a little bigger. But, my guitar teacher from there, his name was Pat Carmody. And, he would play on his acoustic guitar every time we had a lesson. And I asked him why he did that. And why not? Because he had electric guitars. I've seen him play on them. I saw him practice them sometimes. And he's like, well, it's like this. It's a training exercise. See, most of the time, acoustic guitars have thicker gauge strings. And the necks are wider, and it's harder to get your fingers around there. It makes you work more. So that way, when you switch onto an electric guitar, it's like, oh, this is like feathers. And it's so light and I can move so fast. So actually a lot of the times after that, when I would practice something really hard, I would switch to an acoustic and I would just go to town. Now that changed when I put electric guitar strings on my acoustic, which I actually like the sound of, and I didn't have any other strings. But it's still harder than my electric, you know. Whenever I'm really working a solo out, I switch to my acoustic. So, training exercises to just liking that sound over the other one, it is all your own personal opinion. And I'd like to hear you guys' opinion. Say whatever you feel like in the comments section. It'd be nice to hear what other people think. But this has been my acoustic and electric video. Next, we're going to talk about drugs. And disclaimer now, I am not saying to take drugs to become a musician. No, I am not saying that at all. Don't do drugs. I'm not required by law to say that, but don't do drugs. No, we're going to talk about the drugs and how they have affected music. So if you want to watch that, it should be up tonight or tomorrow. Well, everyone, have a good night. Thanks for watching.